I have a very serious question to ask here, and it is, are we headed towards a very big, serious conflict? Because everything we're seeing through the media, through the news, as far as numbers and getting people into the military in this crisis that's happening, it just seems that everything is pointing that way. Let's talk about the past few things in the last year we've seen. $50,000 bonuses for new recruits coming in. Also, the Army said that they were not going to require a high school diploma for people to come into the military. The Air Force just recently announced they want to do a pilot program where they're going to allow people to not worry about their prior drug use in order to be able to come into the military. These are all things, when you look back at history, are related to some major conflict or something that's going to happen. And on top of that, they've now said that the military over the past year or so has had the worst chance of recruiting people and has had this big issue, and they're trying to figure out how they can get to having more people join. But what's weird about this is that they are looking to reduce the pay of service members that are doing special duties, including recruiting. So this is of a mixed bag of what they're trying to do, and they're kind of going against the grain. Air Force Times says airmen brace for special duty pay cut in 2023 and shows somebody that works over at their basic training. It says the Pentagon asked Congress to give fewer airmen the extra monthly compensation known as special duty assignment pay in fiscal 2023. That money, ranging from $75 to $450 a month, is offered to troops in particularly grueling or important jobs, a list that can change throughout the year. To give context, if you're in a very intense billet, you might be isolated, for example. You could be recruiting duty. You could work over at a boot camp situation. These are things where people are going to work typically more hours, and in order to get people to do these jobs, they're going to give them an extra pay every month, which if you were going to get the $450 a month, you're looking at tens of thousands of dollars by the time you would be done with your 3-year tour. So this is a massive pay cut if they decide not to give this to people that are working in situations like this, or recruiting, or at boot camp and things like that, where I'm just like, where is the incentive then? Monthly bonus pay for 30,845 airmen will cost the Air Force an estimated $90.2 million, according to the service fiscal 2023 budget request. That's the lowest ask in at least 2 years. I want to give you guys a little bit of knowledge here that, like, this $90 million is a lot of money. It is. I'm not saying it isn't, but it is actually less than what it's been the past 2 years. And if you compare this to the DoD budget, it is a drop in the bucket. That's because if you look at the past couple years, 2017 was $646.75 billion. 2018 was $682.49 billion. 2019, $734.34 billion. And with inflation, looking at 2020 and 2021 and now 2022 and all these, that I'm not even finding here, I just have to say these are just drops in the bucket. And this is why I look at this and I tell people, you wonder why you got recruiting issues. It's because, yes, there has to be more aircraft, planes and helicopters and ships and all that kind of stuff. But if you're looking at how this number keeps going up, but the people on the bottom feeder that are working for the organization are not getting paid anymore and actually being threatened with more being taken away, as far as tuition assistance, as far as pay, as far as all these other things, what makes you think people want to come in? I don't think that $50,000 is going to make people come knock on the door saying that they should. It says service officials how to handle a $3 million shortfall in special duty pay last November as a part of crafting the fiscal 2023 budget request. Air Force spokesperson Master Sergeant Jared Denton said Friday the final proposal ended up calling for about $1.5 million less in special pay for nearly 500 airmen than the Air Force wanted in 2022. The prospect of a smaller paycheck is hitting home for airmen amid soaring inflation that has spiked the cost of everything from eggs to houses. That comes as some enlisted airmen have voiced concerns about promotion system changes that will increase the time it takes to reach higher pay bracket. Yes! And that's because, look at this, longer time to make rank is a big issue. On top of that, that means less money. On top of that, the housing allowance, which has been known to be being brittled away as they wanted us to pay the 5% extra and not cover actually full housing. With the level of housing right now and how crazy the market is, BH or housing allowance is not able to keep up with it, which honestly is forcing a lot of families to go into base housing, which don't get us riddled with all the problems with base housing on top of that. It kind of pigeonholes you into where do you want to sacrifice? Do you want money coming out of your own paycheck in order to live in a decent place? Or do you want to live on base and suffer through what is inevitably going to be a major problem or issue of having any work done and quality of life. And it looks like the Air Force Vice Chief of Staff General David Allen said, "It's tough to look at airmen and say, yes, we have tough economic times, but I'm going to cut your pay anyway," he said. Alvin acknowledged that officials do lose touch with the needs of everyday airmen in the process of crafting future budgets. It says, quotations, "We carve out little bits of money here and there to afford the next F-35 or be able to do that development and testing here. But that doesn't resonate very well," he said. "We all have to work to understand the impact on recruiting and retention." Let's be honest, this is going to government contracts to allow them to overprice, overcharge for all of these, just pretty much at a premium of a government contract to do these things. And it's frustrating because this is just perpetuating and continuing. And you look at the bubble and how that's going to continue to grow, but it's like little Timmy's having a hard time just affording daycare for his child or whatever else. And it's like, there is money there. It's just not going to the people that are actually serving the military. And to back this up, they said the Air Force at large has suffered from rising costs too. Alvin said the service is $700 million over budget on fuel because of inflation, a must-pay expense. While the official said paying troops and ensuring they receive their stipends for housing, clothing, and other living expenses is the top priority, Base acknowledged that costs have outpaced those payments. And this is exactly why I tell people, like, if you want to experience kind of like what I would assume would be a socialist type mentality in regards to you getting money from the government, it's kind of like your uniform allowance. They give you enough to say we've given you something, but it really doesn't cover everything. For example, males and their haircuts. That uniform allowance is already gone in regards to just that, not even including what they actually have to wear. So when you look at this, you are going to pay something out of your own pocket. She and her fellow senior enlisted leaders into other branches are pushing senior Pentagon officials to review how troops are compensated, and says, quotations, "We need a more modern way to be able to assess housing and subsistence allowances and cost of living adjustments," she said. Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, I don't think you need to develop any other special program, pay any special people. I would advise this. Go to google.com and look up a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment that's out there. Now, look at your maybe married E3, E4 and see what that gets them. If they have a child, see what that gets them if they wanted a 2-bedroom spot. And you don't need any fancy assessments. You don't need any real time. You need google.com to be able to do this. It's not that hard. And just to test my Google theory, we're here at the BH calculator, which I'm doing Minot, North Dakota, because that's one of the worst Air Force bases that I could think of. But their zip code is 58703. Calculated, it is $1185 with dependents. Go to apartments.com for this area. $1152, $965, $850, $895. So realistically, there's not much wiggle room, and this is for a studio for $909 or $885. The financial crisis of some very junior people in the military will be real. This will affect security clearances. This could affect their ability to re-enlist. This could affect a bunch of other things as far as their assignments. So financial aspects of the military are a very real future issue that we could see as far as people being able to actually even be able to keep their jobs. I sit here a little frustrated because we have critically manned billets such as recruiting, boot camp, at sea billets if you're in the Navy, if you want to talk to that demographic, that are filling very in-demand areas that this type of pay, and I can say if the Air Force is going to go this way, it can only set precedent for other ones as we see this go down the line. And obviously every branch is going to have their own issue as far as budgeting. But when I look at this, I have to say, what is going to make someone want to go to the places where people don't want to go? And that includes just the military in general. And I'm just looking at this, and these are two conflicting streams of you trying to cut recruiters' pay, but then you're also trying to throw a lot of money at people coming in. And that's why we have to ask, is there something looming? Is this pointing to something bigger that we're not seeing? But that brings us to the end of this video. What do you guys think about these pay cuts, these recruiting issues, these things that we're seeing that are just I would say pointing to the times of war that we're seeing. Is this informational war? What is going on right now? Because this is becoming a little bit eerie as far as everything is kind of taking place without a war happening, but we're seeing all of the things that are changing like they would during a war as far as military service goes. Let me know down in the comments below. If you guys do have other videos, topics, ideas you want me to cover, hit me up on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, TikTok, or down in the comments below. I love you guys. I'll see you next time.